Welcome to the Canadian Culture Wars Report, or is it just Canadian Culture Wars Report? My name is Shannon Boucher. I'm here with my co-host Melanie Bennett. Welcome to our channel. We are going through a little bit of a rebranding. We've spent the last year or so as the weekly Canadian Gender Wars Report. And because that's plugged into so many other things in the broader culture wars in Canada, we wanted to broaden out the kind of stories that we're covering. We're even going to have some international tie-ins, conversations over the next little while. Today, we're going to talk about the embarrassment of pride. Across the country, as we know, from the beginning of June through, the end of September and 84 additional days throughout the year, we have identity politics celebrations related to people's sexual orientation and their disclosed or claimed gender identities. It has become a debacle. It's become a debacle because of intersectional politics, because of infighting, because of conflicting political agendas within the Pride movement. And a once important organization in Canada and around the world has been co-opted by radical activists. So I put together a bunch of stories that I clipped from Pride events across the country this year. Every single one of the major Pride parade events went through a significant disruption because of the chickens for KFC people, the turkeys for Christmas people, the queers for Palestine. We've all heard those jokes. And whenever I start thinking about this, I'm reminded, Melanie, that you say often that the issue, what is it? The issue is never the issue.
The issue is never the issue. The issue is always a revolution.
The revolution. So it makes no sense, actually, that queer activists are fighting to protect or fighting for the sake of Palestinians and Hamas and radical Islam because they're not friends. They would not get along together. And in fact, we've seen some standoff and toe-to-toe stuff between some of the Muslim activists, pro-Palestinians, and the radicals. And it's getting worse. Okay, in 2016, a couple of BLM activists, Black Lives Matter, before George Floyd, before BLM exploded onto the, kind of the global awareness, shut down the Toronto Pride Parade. They hijacked the Pride Parade by doing a sit-in, claiming that Pride wasn't inclusive enough. They said that there was no Black, disabled, trans women of color. They demanded a position or positions on the board of directors of Toronto Pride. And they demanded that no cops be allowed at the Pride Parade, and they stopped the entire proceedings. And to their detriment, Toronto Pride organization caved. They were bullied and blackmailed in the public eye in the moment by radical activists, Black Lives Matter activists, who, this particular one has a history of making violent anti-white comments, suggesting that she was going to want to kill white folks. Please, God, give me the strength not to kill white people today. Cuss and kill these men and white folks. She was implicated later in, and I don't know to what degree or how this one shook out, but there was something like $300,000 that went missing from the Ryerson University Student Union Fund. And she was one of a couple people in that orbit and the unexplained missing money.
Her name before you move on, it's interesting that it says, please Allah, give me strength not to kill these. Just because after October 7th, if I remember correctly, it was BLM who had a meme of people parachuting down.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, they're pro-Palestinian. I guess she's a Black woman who's come to Canada. I think a new immigrant or born to immigrants, as most Black people in Canada are, really bringing U.S. race politics to Canada, Black victimization, that whole narrative. The reason I bring this up in speaking about Pride is that this was the most dramatic and overt capture of a Pride organization in Canada. And since I started on this journey, exploring gender identity ideology and the whole medical implications of this because it's affected my family. I have talked to many, many people across the country, including my recent Coast to Coast, who've been involved with pride organizations in cities across Canada. Colin Winter was active in the gender critical movement a couple of years ago. He's kind of gone out of the public conversation. He was on the board of Winnipeg Pride. And Winnipeg Pride basically told him, you're white and you're gay, and so you're not oppressed enough, and we don't want you on the board, or we're going to take away your position and give it to someone else. These pride organizations and Jack, who goes by Jack Dan on Twitter, has been involved in Pride Calgary for many, many years. He's got some insights into their funding and how they operate. Same thing. You're a white guy, you're gay, you're just not oppressed enough. And so the original Pride organization has been totally taken over by these radical activists in the name of intersectionality. So who gets the highest score in oppression? I mentioned earlier, not enough Black trans women of color who are disabled, right?
Yeah, I'd add to that too that gay not queer as a hashtag or whatever, as a saying, it says a lot. And not being queer or rejecting queer is also a very, very sticky point of heresy in the LGBTQIA plus community.
So the war that's going on, the LGBT drop the T, and then you have the queer activists saying, no, you can't divorce this. Well, it was force teamed is the word, the LGB, the gays and lesbians and, same-sex attracted people were kind of mashed up with the TQ, the trans and the queer crowd. And now it's TQ has taken over everything, and they're crushing the voices of gays and lesbians, which is causing a lot of division and strife. So going on to some of the strife and division, the Vancouver Pride Parade ends early, canceled by pro-Palestinian protest. So we've got these activists showing up. Interestingly, just hours before, if not less time, Justin Trudeau made his appearance at Vancouver Pride for his photo ops and all his big smiles and yay Pride. And then off he goes. And I mention that because it comes up again. So what do we have here? Masked protesters holding banners and Palestinian flags blocked the parade route at the intersection of Burrard and Pacific. Go on to Calgary. Calgary Pride excludes political parties from taking part in 2024. Now, this is another issue that comes up with the intersectional activists. They have said that certain political parties can't participate. On one hand, you get people saying, oh, well, Andrew Scheer or Stephen Harper or Pierre Poilievre won't go to a pride parade. But then you have the pride parade saying, we don't want you here. Same thing in Saskatchewan.
I think that really does indicate some of the issue here. I think we're sort of touching on that this has become a political movement rather than I suppose it was always a political movement, but it's becoming very, very obvious now that political movement has a very distinctive flavor of the leftist variety that rejects anything it considers to be to the right of it. And it's making that very, very clear now. If you are gay and conservative, you are not welcome.
Indeed. One of the other things is the sponsorship that goes along with this because of the politics. A lot of the sponsorship goes along with the DEI concept, diversity, equity, inclusion, especially the inclusion. Pride has always billed itself as being the inclusive, this big inclusive umbrella, everyone welcome, but it's absolutely clear that they have a list of people that they don't want to include at all. And that raises questions in my mind if these organizations are getting funding from municipalities and cities, from the provinces, from the federal government, and from significant corporations. Why is this funding continuing here if we have this kind of radicalism that's not a reflection of actual inclusion? The corruption and the infighting is obvious. Now, I'm working my way across the country here. The Winnipeg Pride was the biggest one ever. I mentioned Winnipeg Pride already. Colin Winter, several years not involved anymore. I didn't pick up anything, actually, that there was a pro-Palestinian disruption. Oh, wait, blockade pauses parade. A statement of protesters demanding Pride Winnipeg end complicity and genocide, divest from corporate pinkwashing, remove the police from Pride, and center, this is a new one, QT, queer,
Well, that would
trans,
be
Black, Indigenous, people of color.
That's interesting. That would be a much better description than LGBTQIA+. QT BIPOC, these are the entire political gamut thrown in together, right? The BIPOC being really, I don't know, maybe it should be QTBLM to be even more specific. That's a much more descriptive acronym, really, of the privilege and oppression politics that are playing out.
Yes. So on to Toronto. Toronto is the biggest Pride organization in Canada. I mentioned at the opening already the issues with Yusra Kogali, the Black Lives Matter activist. So this is just another iteration of this kind of disruption at Pride and the hijacking of Pride for another political agenda that's not related. In Fredericton, in New Brunswick, the parade was, Fredericton Pride announced its decision to cancel the 2-week festival through social media posts late Thursday, citing harassment board members have received. In this case, the entire parade and festivities were canceled. In Fredericton, in Halifax, there was some news about the premier decided not to attend, citing safety concerns. The safety concerns were unspecified from the premier's office, but we have a disruption again by pro-Palestinian protests. Now, a year ago in Halifax, the parade was canceled because there was so much infighting in the board that they couldn't get their stuff together. So there was news prior to the Halifax Pride Parade. Yes, it's going ahead this year, unlike last year when we couldn't get our stuff together and we were too busy bickering and arguing. And this year it's disrupted by pro-Hamas group. Capital Pride, which hasn't happened yet. It's coming up at the end of the month. That's here in Ottawa. They released a statement with respect to Palestinian solidarity, which has sparked controversy. So it's the same theme as across the country. It's end the genocide, stop the pinkwashing. Pinkwashing, by the way, is kind of like astroturfing or greenwashing. It's a way of hiding bad behavior behind symbols. So they associate the color pink with pride and have been accusing TD Bank of some complicity. TD Bank, of course, being a large sponsor of the Pride organizations across the country, being complicit in the alleged genocide in Gaza. Okay, so
out of curiosity, do you think it's possible to equate things like greenwashing, whitewashing, pinkwashing to a sort of leftist version of virtue signaling or the accusation thereof?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, there's nothing behind lots of their virtue signals, as we know. And so they're calling out virtue signaling and greenwashing or pinkwashing. It's just a different label for the same kind of tactic. So the mayor of Ottawa came up with a statement and he was reached out to by heads of the Ottawa Jewish community who were concerned about the lack of inclusiveness here in Ottawa. I'm going to read Mayor Mark Sutcliffe's statement. I spoke today with the leaders from the Ottawa Jewish community who feel deeply hurt by the statement issued by Capital Pride and have significant concerns about inclusion and safety at this year's event. I also had a good discussion with Capital Pride's executive director and encouraged the organization to meet with Jewish community leaders as soon as possible, to hear their concerns and to work together in the spirit of collaboration and inclusivity before this year's event takes place. Ottawa is welcoming, caring, and inclusive city, all qualities that Pride aims to embody. We all want to see Capital Pride be a safe space from which everyone can be their authentic selves and be celebration of the alphabet rights. I made a comment on this that I think is fair. I don't know if the mayor reads these kind of comments. Pride has lost all veneer of inclusivity, Mr. Mayor. It began in 2016 when radical activists hijacked Toronto Pride in the name of BLM. Since then, Pride organizations across Canada, sponsored by local, provincial, federal, and corporate actors, have become radical, racist, and homophobic. Yes, you read it right, homophobic. Pride is homophobic and lesbophobic in favor of radical queer trans activists and race hucksters. This is the logical conclusion of intersectionality meets Pride, and personally, I hope it's the end of this corrupt institution.
Bravo.
What do we got here? Montreal. So we were going to talk about this on an episode that we recorded a couple days ago, and in the back of my mind, like, oh, there's another big pride parade coming up. Turns out in Montreal, I've got a couple of clips of video here, but we'll get the familiar headline, just change the city name. Montreal Pride Parade interrupted by pro-Palestinians.
Palestine died from HIV because they don't have access to it. Shut the fuck up. I'll make it real.
C'est beau ça, c'est la belle. Il est masqué, lui. Dis d'enlever son masque. Allez.
So credit where credit is due. We have the logo there.
Is that a diaper-wearing, keffiyeh-wearing, Palestine flag-waving individual at a pride parade?
So much oppression. We've only got a couple more tabs here. Most of this is covering the Montreal stuff. This just happened in the last 48 hours. Interestingly, again, both Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh showed up to do their photo ops and do the big smiles and talk about how great Pride is and what an inclusive organization it is. And then we have the disruptions by these activists. And you know, I didn't have this on my bingo card. You know, I suggested.
Really?
No.
Oh, come on.
I suggested like going back a year, like how long can this go on with these kinds of protests, with this kind of awareness? How long can Pride in this incarnation continue to exist? And in this spring, at the very beginning of the Pride festivities, I heard voices on Twitter, and I said out loud myself, I think this is the last year for Pride. But I didn't expect that this would be the way that it goes.
I did. I tell you what, as soon as I understood that Queers for Palestine was an actual thing, like you say, the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. And so I kind of figured that would happen. Now, I don't predict that it's the end of Pride at all. But it seems to me like if you notice, Queers for Palestine are disrupting all the Pride parades because they can. But I mean, we don't have any videos prepared for the actual pro-Palestine marches. At first, you would see Queers for Palestine there a little bit, but you don't see Queers for Palestine at the Palestine marches anymore. They're a very different group of people. Now, Pride, it is a very liberal kind of event. So people there, although can do some liberal crying and virtue signaling and fragility displays, is not a violent kind of place. But the vibes, if we want to call it that, at Palestine marches is very, very aggressive. There's a sense that things could be very violent. There's an aggression that comes out of those, and it is very, very heavily attended by Muslims. You don't see Queers for Palestine at all at Palestinian protest marches. Now, I don't think that's a mistake. I don't think that's a mistake that Queers for Palestine are only disrupting or only getting involved in Pride events.
Yeah, we did see some stuff from the U.S. back in June.
Early on.
Yeah, where there was clashes between the Queers for Palestine people and the actual Muslim for Palestine people. It didn't go well. Not for the Queers for Palestine people.
Yeah,
it just showed some of the absurdity and the lack of thought and. Well, I mean, I've learned now not to expect rationality.
Yeah, well, what I feel like we're watching is ideology taking place, like ideological fervor, more precisely, taking place in the minds of individuals. Now, you have the Queers for Palestine are ideologically fervent in what they're doing. Now, people at LGBT pride parades are much, much less so. They're just people going to a pride parade for the most part, maybe led by some particular ideologues in the QT sense, but that's what I think that we're seeing. And it's encouraged by government, it's encouraged by unions, it's encouraged by schools, it's encouraged by all these institutions. So I don't think that Pride in and of itself is finished after this, but I do think that we're going to start seeing more disruptions, more discord among different groups, more infighting. I do think that because ultimately all of these different groups may have some similar aims between them, but they are very different, or they can have very different desires for outcomes. So I don't know. Personally, I feel like these are popcorn moments and entirely predictable.
Yes. Yeah. I suspect, okay, so a couple things have happened. I mean, there's so much happening always, but I caught wind, and I haven't confirmed this fully, but there seems to be some sense that there's knives out for Jagmeet Singh. An article surfaced yesterday, some chatter, NDP in Ottawa, the unholy marriage between Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau to prop up this minority government may be at risk. I don't know if that's true or not. But at some point, we're going to have an election. And it looks like the headwinds are all... Or
will we?
Right? The headwinds are that we're going to have a conservative government. We've had a tremendous amount of government bloat. The federal public service is up by 43% in terms of numbers of people since the Liberals took over. Typical tactic is for the Conservatives. Brian Mulroney did this after Trudeau Sr. Jean Chrétien actually cut public service in the 90s, but there's going to be big cuts. The red pen is going to come out, and a lot of red ink is going to flow, and a lot of these organizations are going to lose their funding. And I can't see that the Pride organization is garnering any sympathy or gaining any kind of goodwill with these kinds of antics. They should have put down boundaries with Yusra Kogali and said, you don't get to bully and you don't get to blackmail. And yes, there are police at Pride, and we'd like to have you arrested because this is you're disrupting the event, you're disturbing the peace, and we want should be a celebratory event for the people who founded it. But that's not the way it's gone. The red pen's going to come out on all kinds of things. Egal Canada, a bunch of these organizations that get massive funding from the federal government and other layers of government. They're just, the DEI bureaucracies are going to just lose funding. You cut the funding, and these organizations just dry up and go away. We hope. So maybe there is a Pride next year, but they're back to, less corporate, less government sponsorship, and less shenanigans.
Yeah.
And act in the intention of what Pride is, not an ongoing, eternally more oppressed, next cause to mishmash into Pride. This is Montreal.
That's a bit lively.
Yep. A little bit of violence there.
I never thought I would see a scene of a Pride March with ABBA playing and police shields lining the streets.
Mm-hmm. They're blockading between the Pride attendees and the Palestinian protesters.
That is quite the sight. I did not have on a bingo card. Oh, it's our dear leader.
At Montreal Pride, just moments or a very short time before the disruption and all the antics. I've seen no comment from him about this. I don't know why he favors this organization so much.
Oh, well, I think the internet has an idea why.
What? You're not
Well,
talking
there's
about
a lot. No,
the unconfirmed rumors.
the unconfirmed rumors, yes, of his unadmitted potential sexuality, but let's not get into that. I have no feelings either way, but I find it humorous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's our. I mean, there's still a couple of weeks of August left. We have yet to see the Ottawa Pride Parade. We haven't even touched on some of the underlying things that we've talked about before. Excuse me. The Ottawa Carleton School Board has representatives at the front of the parade, basically. Last year, Faye Johnstone here was the Pride Marshal, and all of the so-called family-friendly and age-appropriate stuff for Pride. Some images, of course, come out, as they always do, of the guys in the dog fetish masks and the walking around with their chains and the.
Yeah, and don't forget the different unions coming out, always with children heading the front of the parades as well. Not that I think the children necessarily see some of the more egregious things that happen down the line. They may or may not. I think we see more of that in the USA than necessarily in Canada. But it is curious that, like, for example, the ETFO, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, seem to be really keen on bringing children to front pride parades, certainly.
Yeah, just.
Well, one must signal. It is very important, you see, because Canada has a Pride season, and the Pride season is the most celebrated event in Canadian law. It is what we are known for abroad. Canada has a post-national sort of culture. It does not have an identity, and so we must form our identity around being prideful for the entire summer.
Yeah, all of that's kind of weird. I'm reading this book. I often talk about books, political ponerology, and Andrew Lobaczewski, a Polish psychologist who lived not only under the Nazi regime, but in Poland under the Russian communists after the Second World War. And he wrote that book about the psychology that goes along with these kinds of mass movements. And what we see is in that identity, we're looking at, well, here's another place I'm seeing it right now. We got another handbook, Melanie. I don't know. I buried the lead, but another handbook came out just 2 days ago, and that was Canadian Anti-Hate Network's 40 ways to combat the far right and whatever.
Wait, remember everyone, the far right includes you.
Yeah. And they define fascism. They define fascism very conveniently around their own terms. But when you go and you look at, I was looking at Wikipedia and some other definitions, Britannica's definition of fascism. Fascism is a nationalistic identity or an identitarian group that self-promotes the identity and is in the Mussolini version of fascism, and he was the one who first coined this from what I understand. We're talking about corporatism and a merging of corporatism with government, sort of management in a nationalistic or an identitarian way. And when we look at pride, I could very easily make the argument, and maybe we were talking about Substack before we hit record, maybe there's a piece to put up there about how Pride starts to look like a fascist organization and the sort of ancillary groups around it, where it's all about identitarianism, it's all about controlling a message, it's all about how, group rallying and surrendering of a group identity to a larger identitarian cause. It's mass psychosis. And Correct. These people don't even, they've lost the plot. And you can see how it's all falling apart and really lost all sense.
Well, the good news is I think the majority of the population here in Canada certainly have noticed that things are off. And this year's Pride celebrations across the country, will certainly have woken up the odd extra person who hasn't noticed what's going on. And I think that tends to put people off their cause. So I suppose in some respects, this is actually a positive thing that people are learning that Pride is no longer necessarily just about gay acceptance, which is perfectly fine. If you're gay, you're cool. I like it. It's fine. But it's really a political movement of the leftist variety. Don't forget, fascism is a form of socialism. I don't care what anyone else says. I'm quite convinced of that now. So we need to. I think that's a quite, in some respects, it's a positive that may have come out of this year's ridiculousness.
Indeed. What have we got coming up, Melanie? We have some conversations scheduled. You've been covering off some of the things happening in the UK. Do you have any episodes dropping? Any projects that you're working on?
Yes, I'm finishing up just a little, I think it's about 15 minutes video that I'm going to see if I can release this week. I'm not going to give too many details. It's not a deep dive. I will be reading from an article by Peter Hitchens, and I will be superimposing some video upon that. So there's that. But more importantly, there's a petition out right now that I'm going to put in the description. It is a petition by one of the parents groups and Parent Right Coalition of Canada, the DDSB Concerned Parents, with the help of Jamil Javani. That is being proposed for Parliament right now. It's a parliamentary petition. And it is for the government, or ask the government to review its allegiance or alliance with a W path, and also to limit the access of so-called gender-affirming care for children under 16. So I would encourage anyone, I'm going to put the link in the description. Please, if you're concerned about so-called gender-affirming care in Canada, please sign the petition. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up today.
I think probably coming up, we'll talk about the American Academy of Plastic Surgeons. Big news came out from Leo Sapir yesterday in the US about their change of stance. They represent 92% of the plastic surgeons in the United States, and they've taken a stand against gender-affirming care for minors. Aaron Kimberly, our friend from GD Alliance and of the LGBT Courage Coalition, that's a Canada and US group, has had some interesting things to say about that. A few counter comments. Our friend Michelle Alava from Toronto, who is a detransitioner, has launched the first lawsuit against the medical practitioners who took her through the gender-affirming process some years ago. Had some more cynical take on it. Maybe we'll share that in an upcoming episode. As always, there's lots of breaking stuff on the gender side. We're going to broaden our examination into a broader culture war issues with our back to work and back to podcasting momentum here in the middle of August.
All right, that's it from us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.